About what's happening. Change made real. Okay. So we're gonna start the conversation. Lori and I are sort of been talking about this subject. Michael B's been all over the world through his efforts. So, Michael, I'm going to start with you, and I just want you to give everyone in this audience just a quick sort of background about you, the company you're working for, and what you're accomplishing with your role.
Great. Thanks so much, and it's a pleasure to be here. Is this on? Everyone can hear me? Yes. Well, my name is Mike Burns, and currently I have the honor and privilege to be the head of diversity for Citigroup's Institutional Clients Group. Now, what the Institutional Clients Group is for Citi is it's pretty much everything that isn't a commercial bank on the side of a corner. So it's their investment bank, their corporate bank, their private bank, markets, treasury, and trade, and then all of the operations and technology that center around all of those different functions. I've been with Citi for 7 months now as the head of diversity for them globally. Prior to that, I actually ran diversity for West Point, the United States Military Academy, and a portion of the Army. And then prior to that, I was an attack helicopter pilot in the Army for about 9 years. So I've had...
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. So I've had the honor to kind of travel the world and really have seen firsthand the power of technology and how it truly is the ultimate equalizer for good and for bad. So I can give several different perspectives, not only in this job of how we leverage technology at Citi, being in over 100 countries with 240,000 employees, but also in the service, how we were able to leverage technology to not only win the hearts and minds of people on the ground, but also protect ourselves from the people who wanted to hurt us. And then also how the people who wanted to hurt us managed to use technology for their own purposes. But once again, thanks for being here, and I look forward to a great conversation.
And thank you, Michael. I've invited Miguel Cabrera to come up here and join our panel because he's doing great work uptown. If you can talk a little bit about the movement and certainly introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the movement. He's also a serial entrepreneur, has some great companies already formed. So, Miguel?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. Clayton, Bruce, mentors, and yeah, I want to first let you guys know that I've been an entrepreneur. I worked for Con Edison for many years, and even working within the organization, I always was that guy that was coming up with ideas and getting into trouble. And if you are that person, this is a great stepping stone platform to test out your ideas. And this is what this gentleman did and helped me pursue my passion. We met at Columbia University, many events there as a graduate from Columbia. After Hurricane Sandy, I became very passionate about helping the community. I was an incident commander at the time, and something very simple as police, fire, and medical not communicating with each other over simple things. We needed a ladder, and working for Con Edison, I had a ladder in the truck, but the police didn't have a way of communicating with me, and I was a block away, and I said, this is just insane. So created a mobile application to bring the community together of emergency response, and that went really well, and participated for New York Big Apps. We were winners there, and many other arenas as well. And now they have bestowed upon me the responsibility to bring tech innovations for north of Manhattan, Washington Heights, and the councilman there, Idanis Rodriguez, is taking on a very ambitious project, rezoning from 201st Street, obviously past Dykeman, that's all west, it's considered west, but from 201st Street to 215th Street, that's all gonna be a technology hub. So the budget has been approved for that. Economic development is participating with the community to really this time ask the community, what is it that you wanna see? So obviously the number one issue there is affordable housing. North of 155th Street, there's an unemployment rate of 27% is the unemployment rate, as opposed to national average is about 7%. So employment to the area is a big issue, and affordable housing. And we know that technology is that driver that could bring those mid-income jobs. Obviously, technology not only brings jobs for the actual coders, but there's jobs like digital marketing, doing SEO or any other analytics, data science, and also the sustainability component. As a graduate from Columbia, graduated by my Master's of Sustainability, and we want to be able to now, if it's all being done from scratch, we want to be able to have an input and say, look, we want to have this building sustainable, maybe not pay so much Canada for electricity. Solar panels this time, please. Green roof so we could have good diet and all of that. So yeah, that's the vision with that.
Very good. Got good stuff happening. Uptown, what do you think, Ken?
I think it's, what do I think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think there's a lot of transformation happening in Harlem. I don't think that it can't be done alone. So I think to have collaboration in the process is necessary. And also, most importantly, so often change is thought of as, you bring thought leadership into solve a problem. And I think that the fundamental difference with the approach that Silicon Harlem takes, and certainly the conversations that are happening through Silicon Harlem, how do you tap into the thought leadership within the community to create the results that you're looking for?
Lori, so talk a little bit about,
Data.
yeah, why don't you do that?
I'm actually, can you hear me now? Lori Davis Consulting, and one of the projects I'm working on with a colleague of mine, Nick Waltner, who's here from Seattle, is using data to help bridge the gap for minority and women-owned enterprises and municipalities who have very large budgets and opportunities. So there are, how many, Nick? 708,000 MWBEs in the area. It's a lot, right? And in theory, there's a lot of opportunity for minority and women-owned businesses to do business with the city. The unfortunate thing, though, is that not everybody meets the criteria, very stringent criteria that's in place, to actually hold a contract with the city. And what the city wants to do is bridge that gap and actually use data and other resources to build programs to help close the gap. So you have a plethora of MWBEs who, some of whom with a little bit of support, the right programming, the right foundation, and the right, again, support from the government, could actually bring wealth into the community. Well, we need to use data because it's there to actually help close the gap and solve social problems. So this is one instance where we can use big data.
So, anyone want to respond to Lori's thinking about big data? Michael?
I can. One of the things I also did before the city job and after the Army gig, I actually was the chief operating officer for an anesthesia company. But this anesthesia company, what we did is we created mobile software that was based out of the cloud and consumed big data, and then used that big data to where doctors in real time could actually make real-time decisions in the operating room that would directly positively affect patient care. And so big data, you hear it a whole bunch now. It's kind of the buzzword, but it's really how you capitalize and you use that big data, because data is worth nothing if you don't know how to compartmentalize it and really aggregate it and connect it to other pieces. So I completely applaud what Lori's doing, because I think it's very important. And I just hear so many people using and talking big data, but right now so much big data is just consumed in a reservoir and not being leveraged correctly.
So we want this to be interactive, so please, if you have a question or even a comment, we'll take. We've got a few minutes left with this session, so feel free to do that. So one of the things that we wanted to accomplish with this particular session is really try to figure out what's happening around the country. And if there are other sort of like-minded people that are in this room thinking about how to drive tech and innovation in their communities. And we have a partner in Newark that's working on this very issue, that we've been able to share best practices. We've been to their events, they've been to our events, and what we're finding is that it's important to be connected. You know, it'd be really easy for us to be successful, and then no one else is. That doesn't make any sense to us. We think it's important that everyone can be successful together by being able to share resources and best practices. So
Can I ask a question? to the
please do,
audience?
Michael.
Because I think it's very important for what this conference, what this organization stands for about tech and driving technology. But I always wonder, do we have a destination? Where are we trying to drive to? Because a lot of times without the destination, we're just going and using energy. So I would love to hear what everyone's perceptions and opinions, especially the panelists, of where do we see this thing going? Where are we trying to drive to?
We're going to start with Bruce. Let him start, and then we'll come to you.
Well, where we're going is basically we want to drive the ubiquitous internet. And not simply because it's about having access to the internet, it's because the internet is the driver for applications, services, and programs which can be tailored to meet people's needs. So we want to have, over the next 2-3 years, a set of results where we start to see it taken up in the South Bronx, taken up in Harlem, taken up in Brooklyn. So you start to see more people getting jobs in Silicon Alley, more people being able to raise the financing for their startups, but very real results. And then the idea is that this becomes a model that we're going to transplant to other communities, to Newark, to Baltimore, to Philly, and that draws on sort of the 4 areas I outlined earlier. You know, at the leading edge of the next generation internet, as it creates opportunities and services, the growth of technology companies, because we know every tech job equals 4 or 5 ancillary jobs, and then with young people, increasing STEM literacy, and that being adopted and driven also from the family level, and increasing STEM entrepreneurship among young people.
No, I had a question for you, Clayton, just on what you said before about reaching out to other communities. Is the concept TIE, T-I-E, familiar to you folks out here? Maybe it's just a West Coast thing. It stands for Technology, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship, and it's an Indian-based group. I know they're at least in Seattle. I got invited to one of their events on big data, so I was interested in that. There were some people I wanted to hear speak, and then I've kept going to their events. They're really great events, and again, back to community. And there are a lot of Indian programmers in Seattle now that weren't there when I was a kid, and I think that might be a great. I'd love to hook you up with those guys because I think they do a very good job of it. So they only charge $6 to go with food.
You can do that in Seattle.
And I would add that as a starting entrepreneur, data is your friend. So when we're trying to take a concept off the ground, investors usually want to see signups, traction. Do you have any customers, or are you creating profit? Well, data, if it's presented the right way, could be a compelling story that could get you that funding opportunity. So that was what I did in my case. It wasn't intentional, but I brought a data scientist to my team, who was just this quirky guy at Columbia University. And I said, can you pull up how many bridges are in right now, like broken bridges and other infrastructure in the country, and use that and say, how are we going to communicate all of these things? And emergency response as well for storms, how many people are calling and reporting things. And that was what got me the traction, because I didn't have signups. So it's a great way to, if you have the ability to contact a data scientist and engage them for a few hours, you will be surprised how much in-your-face information you could get that you could put in front of an investor and make a compelling story.
And also, Clayton, you should probably talk a little bit about the publicly available data that's available to everybody. And that data can be used to actually, as a foundation for your strategy, right? As an entrepreneur with a product or service, in theory, you're solving a problem. You need to do research on that problem. There's a lot of publicly available data to help you do that research so that you can position yourself appropriately and actually even scope out the breadth of the opportunity.
Yeah, she's right. You can go to opendata.com, literally. And it's a really good, simple, easy way to search for various things. You know, how many daycare centers are there? What hours are they open? You know, you can find out, oh, maybe there's an opportunity for me to launch a solution for that. I mean, there's all types of ways you can come up with ideas, you know, to use data. I got your question up there, but Michael, did that sort of answer your question
It
about
did.
sort of where we're going? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So let me get this gentleman up here. Not like I'm gonna run up the stairs, brother. You could have met me halfway. Damn.
Good evening. Sorry about that, Clayton. To your question about the destination of data, as we see, data is used to improve quality of life. So all of this information should be bridged to a community to where we can build capacities to solve problems. So we have a startup technology company designed to build that bridge, that we develop a platform and application layer, but that enables communities to be able to translate, transform, and utilize information to change behaviors and decisions. And so when you look at big data and you see all this information being exchanged on behalf of communities, what are communities doing with the data, and how can we measure the collective impact of their use? And that's our goal, is to ideate with communities, spend time with them, talk to real people. You know, how does grandmother raise kids without fathers? How do we do it? I have 10 brothers and 1 sister. My father and mother were separated. I have 4 attorneys in my family. And none of us, we were living in a housing project. Not once did Stanford, Harvard, or anyone knock on the door and ask my mother how she did it. And just imagine, people are being raised all over this country with those capacities and skill sets. So it's exciting to collaborate with both Clayton and Bruce and with this wonderful group of Silicon Harlem to see change happen at the community level. So we're excited to be a part of it. My name is Keith Jacobs. I'm with On Track Life Solutions. We're based out of Tampa, Florida. We have 7 beta markets throughout the U.S. We're working with the city of New York, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Houston, Texas, Florida, California. 2 of my colleagues are with me tonight, Ms. Kia Llewellyn. We have a digital interface to this, which has animation, really cool, hip features. And we also have Ms. Portia Ingram, who is working with, we have a Life Innovation Group, which is a community-based research infrastructure. So I went to these institutions. I went to Harvard, I went to MIT, and I looked in their research centers. And so I thought that tenured professors went to communities and ideated with families. That's what I thought. Because the research is saying 59% of African Americans are going to jail. So I was trying to figure out what African American male was asked that question. Because no one came to my family and asked the question. So it's interesting, how do we become vested in research? Research is shaping Harlem. Someone says the economic base does not exist to put a bank on the corner. And guess what? A bank does not come to the corner. So we have to influence the research. We are the research. The people are, not the big data. They are reflecting on human choices that produce big data. So I think if we are more vested in that space, I think it's going to help us transform our communities. But thank you so much.
How about that? So Keith has been very generous. We've been able to see his platform. It is an amazing innovation, and we're very proud of him and what he's doing, and very grateful that you came today. Thanks, Keith. I'm only going to take 1 or 2. I hear there's like a bar here, so I'm like getting ready to get busy. So we're going to take a couple more questions and move right into our reception. The reception is going to feature the hackathon we had the last couple of days, which was with filmmakers. We did this in conjunction with NBPC, and you're going to see some tremendous projects, but most importantly, we're going to do online real-time voting for the second place project. The winner's already been picked, $5,000 prize. Second prize is going to be picked by you, $2,000 prize. So, you know, this is serious. It's going to be polling. You can do it through your phone, so we'll get to that. But here's a question.
Hi, thank you very much. My name's Karen Page. I think I live here at MIST. I work in a shared workspace. I'm an educator. I'm a mother. I am a lifelong learner. And I've heard so much self-confidence today in the voices of everyone who has spoken, whether they're on a panel or whether they're in the audience. But I think there was a voice that was a little different a few minutes ago from the principal, from the educator in the room. And I don't know how many of you picked up on a tone. It was almost, and excuse me for talking for you, but I'm one, so, but it's almost a plea. And I think it's on all of us when we're a part of these grassroots organizations that there's such a hive of activity going on that we have got to reach beyond the normal structures and get to her, meet with her, figure out how we can do it outside of formal education, which is moving too slow. We're losing the learners to the 20% up above 155th, and we're going to keep doing it no matter what we create here unless we get to the kids. So I just wanted to acknowledge that she's over there, and we have to do something more.
Good point. Good point. Okay. I've been told we got to move on, so I'm going to get one last question over here, and then we'll be able to get to whatever I'm being told. Where are we at?
Okay, my point on big data is I've gone to a lot of conferences where big data has been discussed ad nauseum. There's a lot of freaking data. We are inundated with a fire hose of data. It does not always change human behavior or their motive. Okay, so when you have a diversity conference and you got data from the census, you got data coming out your phone, there's a lot of data, but it doesn't essentially empower people to actually change their behavior, even if it's good information. So my question is, how do we orient these institutions to be reaching out to these opportunities in these communities with maybe a profit motive?
You don't expect an answer, right? You just don't. All right, Ken has a thought on that. Let's get one or two reactions, and we got to wrap it up.
I think that to that point, data is only as good as the motive behind it. But Khalil Muhammad, for example, is a historian. He was here earlier. He runs the Schomburg Museum out of Harlem. And he published a book that was called Condemnation of Blackness, which looks at historical ties between, African Americans and the myth of criminality in black communities, where it started from how the conversation evolved. And long story short, the same data that W.E.B. Du Bois was citing in an effort to get folks to think about why that myth was not grounded in fact was the same data, census data in particular, that the counter argument was being used for. So I think it comes down to an understanding of how do we get enough conversations happening, how do we get enough individuals collaborating across the country, across the world, to really provide a counter narrative that's strong enough and compelling enough to make some kind of impact. I just say that to say, I think that looking at, from a historical framework, at what's worked in the past and what hasn't worked in the past is an important piece to this conversation. So often we come in thinking we need to construct new football fields for new challenges, for example, new stadiums, if you will. But more often than not, what we should be looking at as a community is where was the last first down marker? What was the conversation had around, some of the challenges that we faced previously, and how do we use that conversation to push forward, because energy is being expended, and this is long-winded, but energy gets expended, and people in positions of power expect that energy to be expended. They don't expect the results. And so I think that being smarter about the ways in which we come together around this data can definitively impact the results we have. But that's
And if I can add to that, because this is what I do all day long at City, is I look at data and then try to sit and figure out how I'm going to present this data to senior leaders to have different outcomes. So I completely understand your issue. And your point about conversation around the data is key, but the conversation has to be had with the people who make the decisions. A lot of times when we talk diversity, the conversation is had with the people who get it, who are sitting in the room, and therefore you see no movement and no momentum and no change. So when I sit down with the leaders of City, and I sit down with all of them, very senior people at City, I show them numbers, and we talk the numbers, and I have the 5-year-old kid approach. I ask them why it looks like this. Then they give me a reason, and then I ask them why again to that reason. Then I ask them why, and then at some point in time, we peel back the onion enough to where the real reason and that we all can come to agreement on it's revealed. And then once that real reason's revealed, then we can take proactive steps and tie those numbers to initiatives and that data to initiatives to make change. But a lot of times we're not making and having those hard conversations with the people that make the decision. We're just having them inside of our silos to where we're just really preaching to the choir and talking. So that's my opinion on how we change it and why big data isn't changing necessarily or impacting behavior.
And I want to add to that and say that you're absolutely right. It's the question, who you're asking it to, the timing of that question. That alignment is really critical to affecting real change. And I would have to say that you can use data sometime to take the emotional energy, the negative emotional energy that people feel around even diversity, supplier relations, and the whole stream of what do we do to equalize opportunities. If you have the right conversations with the right people and you show them the data in terms of the opportunities and the real opportunity, to peel back the onion and really describe what the real opportunity is, I think you can use data. I think data works.
Let me
Maybe
just
I'm
throw
naive.
one thing out, too. So when I look at the 20th century business models, and when you talk about Pam, you know, where's the business model, where's the money when we are consumed with so much data? Well, we weren't consumed with so much data in the 20th century. It was very difficult, even though we were doing it in a variety of ways. There's just so much more information we're able to collect now. In fact, 24 hours of information that we collect. So when you see a company like a Facebook, a company like Twitter, a company like any of these 21st century companies, Google, they're not content companies. They're not. They're not even in a lot of ways, you know, giving you much of anything. Provide you a platform. So they're taking that data and monetizing it. You know, Facebook has 5,000, maybe 6,000 employees. You look at a Citibank that he just mentioned has 120,000. Who's bigger? They can do it with 5,000 employees. So they do that because they aren't, bogged down with a whole bunch of other stuff. They're just using data to monetize their movement. And I think there's something interesting about that Airbnb found out, that Uber found out, and all of these sort of sharing economies, because they're going, we're not just product and services, we actually are able to take your data, and since a lot of you young people don't care too much about your privacy, and we are able to monetize that. So that's sort of where we are in this 21st century. There's going to be more disruption as a result of it, but not every business is going to make it. There's still some numbers still stay the same through these centuries. One of them is, you know, 3/4 of your businesses fail, no matter how much of a softball you've been given. So I agree with you, data ad nauseum. However, if you still are focused on an idea that can be monetized by the use of that data, I think you can have a sustainable model. We are excited to have this conversation, because that's what it is. All right, so let me, I got to wrap it up, but what do you have to say?
So sorry. Facebook actually spawned a marketing company based on all the data he's talking about called Nanigans. You might want to have a look at that company. It's a very interesting model. It's very successful. It's basically a marketing information processing company, and they call their process predictive marketing. And they take data and they fold it and they resell it, and it's your data usually, and they make hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. It's nanigans, like as short for shenanigans. Yeah. There you go.
Let's thank these panelists, and I want to thank all of you for participating and sharing your insights. I want you to stay, because we're going to vote on these projects from Hack 360's hackathon, and we're going to have our DJ set up and reception and all this other stuff. We got food coming, so hang out for one more minute, and we will get this going. Can we get MBPC in here?